There were moments early on where I seriously thought about quitting learning to code. In one of my first programming classes, I had just bombed a project so badly, the instructor pulled me aside and asked me, "Are you sure this is what you want to do in the future?" I remember going home that night and thinking maybe the tens of thousands of dollars and the months I'd spent trying to learn to code was all a huge mistake. But I wasn't lazy. I wasn't unmotivated. I was just stuck in what Seth Godin calls the dip. The long slog between starting and mastery, designed to keep out people who weren't serious. If you're in the trenches learning to code, trying to get your first job, or whatever it is, and you're not sure whether to keep going, I'm going to tell you my story of going through the dip multiple times, and maybe it'll give you some insight into when it's smart to persevere versus pivot. Several years ago, I was interviewing for a new role after a layoff. It was for a position that I felt like was a perfect fit. I had more than the required years of relevant experience in the exact tech stack that they used, and their product seemed like something that I've worked on before, and it wasn't overly complex. So I walk into the interview fairly confident, and the first thing that she asks me is JavaScript trivia. And it wasn't exactly simple trivia either. There were questions going into depth about like the event loop and hoisting and other concepts that I just don't encounter day to day at my job. And because that was my first interview in over a year, I didn't realize how rusty I became and how unprepared I really was. And then there was a live coding portion where she asked me to write out the entire debounce function in JavaScript line by line. For some reason, my brain froze partway through and I'm just staring at the whiteboard, not really sure where to go from there. By the way, you guys, this is why when you're preparing for these interviews, you really need to simulate the exact environment as closely as possible, because there is a world of difference between coding in your IDE in the comfort of your own home versus coding on a whiteboard with a lot of people watching you in a timed environment. Anyways, the interview looks at me kind of just watching me struggle and not really saying anything. I remember feeling so frustrated and thinking to myself, what is the point of this test? Let's be honest, there isn't any scenario in which I would need to write out a debounce function line by line without having access to the internet. Why am I being tested on knowledge in these scenarios that are so far removed from reality? It was at that moment when I realized the gap between where I was and where I needed to be was massive. And it was a huge wake-up call. You know that Dunning-Kruger graph where you're in the valley of despair because you realize how much you don't know? Yeah, I was there. It's overwhelming because at that point I was laid off and I was thinking, like there's so much I need to know and I'm so far from being ready. Should I even maybe pivot to a different career? It's even more terrifying when you're unemployed and the likelihood of finding a job just feels less and less likely each day. Around this time, I came across this really short book and it kind of changed my perspective on whether or not to quit. By the way, if you're also preparing for a technical interview or grinding leak code, you should take a look at learning Python. Python is a concise, easy to learn language that will give you an advantage during coding assessments in a timed environment. Not to mention, it's one of the most popular programming languages out there and absolutely critical if you want to get into data science or data analytics. That's why I think this free resource guide on Python developed by HubSpot is an incredibly useful way to help you better understand some of its key concepts. For those of you just starting out, it provides a clear, approachable introduction to Python's core syntax. It gives you a solid introduction to things like functions, data types, loops, and object-oriented programming while using simple language and practical examples to help you nail down the fundamentals. It breaks down Python's syntax and structure, helping beginners build confidence and write their first scripts. For those of you like me who have experience with Python, you can get a lot of value out of this guide too because it covers stuff beyond the basics. It goes in depth on useful packages, proper coding standards, and real-world examples on how to actually use Python for data work and automation. My favorite section is the part on real-world scenarios and industries, showing you how you can can use this in day-to-day situations. Whether you're learning to code or looking to level up your workflow, this guide is a solid foundation and a great reference to have handy. Thank you so much, HubSpot, for putting this resource together and making it available to my audience, and for sponsoring this video. Have a look for yourself by clicking the link in the description below. In software engineering, I see the dip as the technical interviews, a set of artificial screens created to select only for people who are determined enough to grind through the slog. When you don't do well in the interviews, it can be really easy to blame external circumstances, such as the job market or interviewers asking gotcha questions. And the thing is, you're not wrong. You have every right to vent and be upset if you've been promised by the media or content creators that everyone can learn to code in just a couple months. But the fact of the matter is, there was a technical standard, and at that interview, I didn't meet it. It's not unreasonable to expect an engineer with, at that point, like 4 or so years of experience to know how debounce works and to reason through basic implementation. I was just being lazy and I didn't prepare enough for the interviews. The idea that I should be able to walk into a 6-figure job without having deep knowledge or investing a bit of time into interview prep is entitled. The job market for software engineers is incredibly competitive, especially today. But the fact that these technical assessments are brutal and coding is hard to master is what makes engineers valuable. In a competitive world, adversity is your ally. The harder it gets, the better chance you have of insulating yourself from the competition. If you're several weeks deep into grinding leak code and you're about to crash out over a problem, just remind yourself that this artificial gatekeeping is doing you a favor. It's eliminating a lot of your future competition and making you better in the process. The harder it gets, the fewer people that are going to be able to do it. It's this adversity that creates scarcity, and scarcity creates value. If it were any other way, software engineers wouldn't be paid nearly as much. Throughout our entire lives, the importance of being well-rounded has been hammered into us. But the real world rewards the exceptional, not the well-rounded. Real world rewards. Try saying that 10 times. If you're a competitive bodybuilder, for example, and you're looking for the perfect coach, you're not going to really care about whether or not that coach is also a fast runner. What does this have to do with programming? I believe right now is a bad time to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Obviously, you still want to have a decent enough understanding of the entire stack so that you can still remain flexible enough to change specialties if the job market demands change or your own interests change. One of the reasons I couldn't pass the technical interviews, or I was passed over in the final round of the interviews, was because I was just okay at everything. I was a full stack engineer who could do basic styling but didn't deeply understand JavaScript. In front-end interviews, there was someone who understood React better, and in full-stack interviews, there was someone who did better at data structures and algorithms. And even though now there are more full-stack positions open than just front-end or back-end, I still believe that specialization gives you an advantage. One of the biggest time wasters when I was learning to code was trying to keep all of my options open. I was jumping from language to language, trying to cover as much ground as possible so that I could apply to as many jobs as possible. What I didn't realize is that I was wasting a lot of time just being a newbie each time I switched languages or technologies. In the book, Godin observes 2 different checkout strategies that he witnessed at the grocery store. The first strategy is to pick the shortest line and stick with it no matter what. The second strategy is to pick the shortest line and keep scanning for others and switch if a shorter line appears. What he realized is that the second strategy usually resulted in the person waiting longer, since every time they switched, they had to start all over again. You see this behavior with investors. It's those that are constantly buying and panic selling and trying to time the market that end up with less money than those that stay the course. The same sort of principle applies to learning skills. The more you hop from one hot technology to another, the more time you're spending starting over. So the message here is, don't be a serial quitter, and especially don't quit when you're going through the dip, because anything worthwhile is going to have a dip. Some content creators, for the sake of engagement or to give you a quick hit of dopamine, will tell you that you can learn to code within a few months and find a job as an engineer.
This is the story of how I learned how to code within 4 months and I got a job.
How I landed an $80,000 software engineering job at 16 years old.
And while that is technically true, a lot of viewers are left with the impression that all you really need is a laptop, an internet connection, and just a couple hours a week. What they fail to mention a lot of the times is that the job search could take over a year, and entry-level salaries are often nowhere near six figures, especially if you don't have a degree. I've been accused of looking down on self-taught developers and being negative, but for way too long, social media hasn't been fully honest about the huge commitment it takes to learn to code. If you aren't able to stay consistent for at least 2 years to study and job search, or even better, go back to school for a computer science degree, then this field might not be for you at this time. You know that aha moment you get after spending hours trying to debug a piece of code? If you don't get any sort of fulfillment from that process and you think coding is just a path to a stable career and easy money, then you're going to be disappointed. There absolutely is good money to be made in this career. Even in this job market, I really believe that if you're good at your craft, there's always going to be a job for you. But if you're not going to be able to tolerate the dip before getting really good at coding, then quit early and focus your time on something you can get good at. Most of us don't have the guts to quit. Worse, when faced with the dip, sometimes we don't quit. Instead, we get mediocre. Maturity is realizing that you don't have the time or energy to excel at everything. And your best strategy is to save your resources for something that you can get great at and are willing to go through the dip. Despite how demoralizing it is to bomb an interview, I'm also glad it made me not settle for mediocrity. It forced me to focus on what mattered and quit the other BS that were just distractions. In this competitive market, you need to work a little bit harder and a little bit longer than the average person to make it, but it's also never been easier to stand out. While everyone else is using AI as a crutch or trying to find other shortcuts, you can take the real shortcut, which is simply doing the hard work that most people are avoiding. Extraordinary benefits accrue to the tiny minority of people who are able to push just a tiny bit longer than most. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you might like the one I did recently on what I wish I knew before becoming a software engineer. That's it for today, and I'll see you over in that one. Bye-bye.